Hello, hello, welcome, please come in. It is time for another bonus episode, for some reason. Wait, why did I make this video? Anyway, as voted on by my patrons and YouTube channel members, it's time for the very first solo video in the new-ish remaster of Final Fantasy Tactics. And we will be doing that using the Mystic class, a class that I mostly don't actually use in Final Fantasy Tactics. Why bother inflicting status effects when murder is just as fast, just as effective, and has a higher hit chance? At least in prior versions of the game, but we'll talk about that much later. Anywho, it will be interesting to see how Mystics and their many status effects fare. Anyway, that is the starting fights completed, no challenge necessary, and next up is to recruit my full team. I will be leaning on female units as they have slightly higher MP and magic attack growth, though in retrospect more HP may have actually been more useful in the long run, who can say? At least the remaster lets me look through 15 units at once, and as usual, I want High Faith for better status accuracy. High Brave is fine, I guess, but Mystics only get one reaction ability, and it's not good, so... And sadly, there is not, at time of recording, a save editor for the remaster, meaning I must manually unlock Mystic rather than just editing my character's stats. At least I have the Deluxe Edition equipment and can change Remza's outfit color. Whee! Alright, I don't actually have Mystic, but I need to rescue Argath in the next fight before I can unlock any grinding, which isn't super notable, but Argath manages to not immediately get killed, so that's a nice change of pace. Though it does also mean he's spending time wasting my XP opportunities. Oh well. And that means it's time for random encounters in Mandalia Plains. Ah, memories. Good news is, you can now just select the map icon to start another random encounter, no more running back and forth for random fights. But hold please while I get my characters leveled up and Mystic acquired. Okay, so that is the whole party's Mystics, ready for the rest of the game, but I still have some problems. First, weapons. They're bad, at least for now. Mystics can only equip staves in Act 1, and while staves do deal damage based on magic attack, the damage is awful. And while status effects can be very strong in this game, they tend to be a bit unreliable due to accuracy, MP cost, and duration. But let's dive into the next story battle anyway. Good news is I do have Delita and Argath in the party to help. Bad news, the remaster limits them to the starting Squire class, which is not great. Thankfully, Hesitation is fairly accurate and can do a lot to incapacitate the enemy monsters. And while staff damage is bad, these are pretty early fights. Hopefully the staff damage can keep me going through most of Act 1, because it's gonna have to. Looking at abilities, and my big ones are Hesitation for Disable, Induration because Stone, and Invigoration because percentage damage and healing. As with any class that can't otherwise heal, healing is going to be a problem. Brilliant insight, I know, I am a master of Final Fantasy Tactics. Well, since the first story battle went okay, let's hop into the next fight in Dorder City. This introduces me to archers and black mages, both of which can deal a lot of damage to my Mystics. To be fair, Mystics are actually more durable than many other mage classes, but they aren't that much more durable, especially at this level. And High Faith means these black mages can one-shot some of my party members. Yeah, this isn't gonna go great. I mean, it's not a complete loss. I have a lot of space left to learn new abilities and level up if needed. I mean, I'm not going to do that yet, I'm just gonna retry, because I'm stubborn and a bit stupid. So, I think what I want to do is keep my Mystics low and let Delita and Argath take the high route. They are stuck as Squires, which is not great, but they can at least heal themselves. Okay, so that didn't go great, not an ideal start. One of these days, I'll get to play another class that can just deal big damage. Okay, fine, I'll level up. Are you happy? And I'll probably get a lot of experience per fight too, because I'm going to have to hit these enemies many times to bring them down. Because again, staves are not good offensive tools. So let's slowly grind up some experience and job points. Okay, a bit of experience gained and money acquired, and I can actually give Delita and Argath better equipment. I may not be able to change their classes, but they can still be more useful by outfitting them with better gear. Why did I not do this previously? Exciting question. No idea. In many ways, Mystic is more of a support class in this game, and that is very true here, thanks to Argath and Delita having better equipment and damage. I really just need to inflict Disable to give Delita and Argath room to hop in and actually do some damage. This isn't the most consistent strategy, but considering how weak Mystics are this early in the game, that's basically all I've got. I really did consider just letting that Mystic permadie to win this fight, but no, I just need to try again. Delita and Argath have the stats to mostly handle this fight on their own. They also have potions. We can just do this again and be more careful with my Mystics so they don't die. Next attempt does it, and that is Dorder done. Wow, that was way more difficult than I expected. This may end up being rough. And that means it's time for another fight that is basically always very easy or very difficult depending on the class I have access to. Let's learn Delirium. Confuse might actually be useful in this fight. I mean, what I actually need is a lot more MP, but that's gonna take a bit. Okay, Delita and Argath are just running right in there and getting themselves killed. Okay. But yeah, Delirium's accuracy isn't great, but when it hits, it does good work. And the enemy will actually hit their ally to cure Confuse. That's unfortunate, but don't worry, I also need to be very careful about charging spells. If hit, the target takes extra damage and they can't evade. Yeah, this first attempt is kind of a bust. At least the remaster has a quick retry option that will generally save a lot of time. And that's good because this fight takes a decent number of attempts. Delita and Argath insisting on getting themselves killed does not help. Neither does the fact that I have so little MP at this point in the game. But eventually, with some very good Confused luck, I do finally manage to get a run where I make some good progress. It also helps that Argath dies in this doorway, and none of the remaining enemies have ranged attacks. Seriously, Argath's greatest contribution to this fight may actually just be blocking the enemy so I can spam Delirium and watch them half-kill each other. The enemies turning to Crystal to get back some HP is also a nice boon. Okay, so that took 2 hours to get to this point in the game. Good news, I can buy better hats and better armor. But there are no better weapons because the white staves you can buy at this point aren't actually any better. Fantastic. Okay, those roadblocks out of the way, it's time to hop into the Brigand's Den. This map only requires me to take out Maluda, the rest of the enemies are optional. That is good, in theory. The big problem is I don't really have any good damaging capabilities on my Mystics. Staves do deal okay damage, but not very good damage. However, I do have access to Confuse, and Disable, and Sleep, which are all pretty strong. And honestly, having 2 guests with good weapons in the party is really nice. It would be better if I could change their classes to something other than Squire, but whatever, that's what we get. The fight goes mostly fine, though one of my Mystics does die right at the end of the fight, adding a little bit of a time limit, and Delita and Argath would much rather use potions on my units rather than just finish the fight. There we go. Okay, that was at least an easy one. That means Tetra has been captured and we need to rescue her, which will surely go fine. This starts with another fight against Maluda in the Lanalian Plateau. Like the previous fight, only Maluda needs defeated. However, I am down a useful guest and up against some very dangerous spellcasters. The big downside of using spellcasters myself is that I am very vulnerable to offensive magic. I do still have a lot of good status effects to incapacitate my enemies, but Delita wants to take advantage of that on the weak mages rather than focus firing Maluda. So it's up to my Mystics to bash her in the face repeatedly, which works, but it is very close. Completing that unlocks some new armor for my Mystic, so more HP and more MP, both very nice, and a new sword for Delita, which means he can deal more damage, which is also very nice. So with that new equipment, it's time to face down Weegraf. Yep, that is how it's pronounced. No, I don't really like it either. And that means it's time to show off Invigoration. This deals 25% of the target's max HP and will quickly become a staple in my damage output for most of the game. And I don't actually have Invigoration on everyone, but I have it on 3 characters, and I really only need to get Weegraf down to critical health. So a few restarts of the fight later, and all 3 Invigorations hit, ending the fight. Invigoration is going to be very important to my combat strategy, basically forever, and I really need to get it learned on everyone. But with that out of the way, it's time to dive into the final fight of Act 1. And this is gonna be a doozy. Argath himself is pretty easy to ignore. He does have a crossbow, which isn't ideal, but crossbows don't actually deal that much damage. No, the big problem is the black mages. They have access to very strong spells that I am not really equipped to deal with, and while I only have to take out Argath in this fight, that is easier said than done. A big problem is that the starting formation has my party split into 2 groups. This is bad because it means focus firing is a lot trickier than I'd prefer. And because my Mystics still have no survivability, I lose that race every time. I do have a few statuses to try and incapacitate the opposing forces, but none of them are great. Induration is very MP expensive and has a slow cast time. Repose and Delirium are both better, but the enemy will hit each other to remove the sleep or confusion, limiting their utility. And while Hesitation is fast and decently accurate, Disable is very short-lived in this game. I think I really have no choice but to do some more grinding. Invigoration on everyone could be my win condition in this fight. Oh, and Defense Boost could be nice to reduce Argath and the Knight's damage. Well, let's do some grinding and see what I can make out of this. Okay, grinding done, back into the fight, and this time I am more ready to actually win this time. Leveling in this game is a slow process, so I did a lot less of that than I'd like, but judicious use of statuses did disable most of Argath's troop and get him separated. Ramza is dead, so I am on a bit of a time limit, but Argath was always a bit of a wimp. And that means it is into Act 2. Honestly, just having defense boost and mana font does so much to improve Mystics, because they end up being way more durable than most other casters. But getting into Act 2 means I now have 2 new guests in the party. Agrias and Gafgarian are both very strong and should carry me for a bit, including in the next battle. Gafgarian and Agrias can probably beat this fight by themselves, so my Mystics are really just here to inflict some status effects, to speed things up, and not die in the process. Which they mostly manage. Act 2 does get some new gear, and this highlights one advantage Mystics have over their spellcasting gears. I don't actually need to prioritize MP nearly as much. This means I can focus on HP boosting armor rather than MP boosting robes. That is because, while Mystics do use MP, obviously, their spells aren't actually that expensive, and Mana Font gives a way to regain MP mid-battle, and that extra durability should do some good work. Next up is Aragwe Woods, where I need to rescue a Chocobo. Both Gafgarian and Agrias are in the party, they are still very strong, so this fight is another easy win. Ah, what sweet relief. It's not going to stay like this, but it's so nice to have some easy fights to breeze through, especially considering I still have a ways to go. Let's learn some abilities, take all of Gafgarian's equipment off him, and it's over to Zirkle Falls, and oh no, betrayal. Good thing Gafgarian has no equipment on him for some unknown reason. That being said, the knights in this fight can be pretty difficult, just because they have a lot of health. However, I have Delita, back as a Holy Knight, and I still have Agrias. My Mystics still don't have any good damage dealing options, but I do have so many status effects. Magic also ignores height in its targeting parameters, so I can easily turn them to stone from anywhere I want. And while knights may have a lot of health, that doesn't actually matter when you can just turn them to stone. I will be using Enduration a lot in this playthrough. And completing that mission means I can start by robbing Ovelia of her nice equipment, and I can finally buy poles! These calculate damage the same way as staves, weapon power times magic attack. However, they actually have good weapon power to multiply by, and they can hit 2 tiles away. And because I can, generally, focus on HP boosting armor, I can actually have my characters be pretty durable. I will still want a high magic attack for pole damage, obviously, but more HP can be a strong motivator. Look! Real damage! With a weapon on a mage class. It's so nice. Okay, time for the next story mission in Zaland. Here, we need to rescue Mustadio, who will be doing everything he possibly can to get himself killed. Good news is I don't actually have to have him survive to win this fight. Even better news, he moved to the left. And moving to the left basically always means he will survive. It's actually very funny. And because he survived, he's able to take advantage of his gun's great range to deal pretty good damage. From there, it's really about my Mystics just casting debuffs to take out or weaken enemy units. Agrias and Mustadio are more than capable of killing most other enemies. And between Stone and Disable, my status effect game really weakens the enemy. Seriously, I think most battles in this game are going to end with a field of statuary. Induration may be a bit MP expensive, slow, and a little inaccurate, but wow, instant death is such a nice ability to have. And with the new guest in tow, it's time to head to the Belias Tour. The physical attackers here aren't super dangerous. I have more than enough status effects to weaken them and defense boost to mitigate their damage. No, the real problem, as usual, is the summoners. As demonstrated. Let's just restart that fight. A couple times. I really need to hold back so that the summoners target Mustadio and or Agrias, both because Agrias is more durable and because them dying doesn't risk them disappearing forever. Okay, this is going a lot better. Agrias and Mustadio are both down, but so are many of the enemies. And while there is a summoner left, she is out of MP, and that's good enough. I do love Invigoration dealing percentage damage and healing the caster. Okay, that took more attempts than I'd like, but it wasn't too bad. That gets me to Lionel Castle. Sadly, this means the departure of Agrias and her very good sword skills. Good news though is that it means better poles and some speed boosting hats. I can also buy wizard robes for an increase to my magic attack on all characters. This means better weapon damage and a comically insignificant boost to the accuracy of my status spells. I'm still working on unlocking all of the mystic abilities though. Oh well, next up is the Siegel of Fenlands. Bad news is that everything here is undead, so Invigoration, my only healing option, is off the table. Undead can also resurrect if their death timer reaches 0. Good thing my best attack is Induration, which doesn't actually care about any of that. Easy fight, albeit an MP-intensive one. That done, it's over to Gog. Nothing new to buy, so let's get right to the rescuing Mustadio portion of my day. Because Mustadio has no equipment, he is not particularly useful in this fight, except as a distraction, which he does pretty well at. The thieves and archers aren't too scary, neither are durable, and defense boost can do a lot to reduce their damage. The summoners are the real threat, though neither seem to want to use any offensive spells, so I suspect they actually don't have any, which means this fight should be a lot easier than I feared it would be. And yes, that was in fact a very easy victory. I love when enemy summoners have no offensive spells. And now we need to rescue Agrias at the Belias Swale, and this fight is a bit of a mess. Agrias is back and good as ever, but the enemy units are very strong, very durable, and more than willing to take advantage of my spellcasting charge times. A few false starts see too many characters dead. Eventually I managed to take out both mages and get some good status effects off, and... oh, Agrias is dead. Fantastic, let's run that back. I knew this fight would be a bit tricky, but I really wasn't expecting it to be this rough. The big issue is, humorously, Agrias. Because she isn't super durable and loves to just rush in immediately and get killed, so I can't hang back nearly as much as I'd prefer. But after 5 or so attempts, I managed to land Induration 3 times in a row to turn the last 3 enemies to stone. Hooray! Surely the next fight won't be worse. Oh right, it is. Much worse. So much worse. This might actually be the hardest fight in this game, though it is close with a few much later encounters. So let's break down all the problems with this fight. Problem 1, Gafgarian. He now has actual equipment, making him considerably more dangerous, and able to deal damage and drain HP. Next issue is the mages, who just love to use offensive magic on my party. I don't actually think it's guaranteed that they will know offensive spells, but when they do, they deal pretty big damage in an area against my very high faith party. That is the big downside of faith builds, is that every enemy spellcaster becomes much more dangerous. The next problem on the list is the starting position of my units. They're awful. Dividing my units into 2 groups with 2 mystics in prime range for enemy archers, Gafgarian sword abilities, and random magic. This fight is just kind of a mess, and while I could, in theory, use status effects to weaken my enemies, they require time to hit and are not fully accurate. At least my poles are dealing decent damage. That is a huge advantage. I mean, it'd be more of an advantage if the archers and time mages didn't start so stupidly high up on the map. At my movement speed, I am never making it to that upper level. Okay, let's see if changing out my mage cloaks for battle boots helps. I'll miss the bonus magic attack and the evasion, but honestly that may be worth it just to move my units further away from the enemy. In theory, I may even just need to get lucky with invigoration. Gafgarian and the knights do have a lot of HP to theoretically steal, too bad the accuracy is not as reliable as I'd like, at least not with how many times I'd need the magic to hit. So I tried this fight for about an hour, trying every different strategy I could really think of right now, and I think this was my best attempt. 2 enemy units turned to stone, and half of my party is dead, and the enemy has a lot of distance on me. So yeah, I think I just need to grind, or maybe just buy better equipment. Magic is nice, but more HP for survivability may be what I actually need. MP drain? I mean, that's not ideal, because now I can't cast any spells, but it is better than draining HP. And while it is not always the best option, putting enemy units to sleep can be very useful. Mostly because sleep lasts a very long time in this game. And with Gafgarian focus fired into fleeing, things have gotten a little bit easier. Yeah, this is much better, actually. Now that I've gotten my units closer together, and I'm not immediately in constant shooting range, things are much more in my favor. I do still have to be careful, because I could still have a unit die with very little warning, but nothing some induration luck can't fix. Okay, that was a lot. I really need this challenge to get just a little bit easier. And beating that fight means I have to fight Gafgarian again. Except the terrain is also not in my favor, and my party starts off split up. Okay, preamble aside, this fight is actually much easier than the last fight. Gafgarian is still using MP Sword for some reason, and the archer gets a Thunderbow trigger immediately, which is rude, but the enemy just starts closer to me. Gafgarian also has very good compatibility with Ramza, meaning Disable is incredibly accurate. This lets me stop him from being a jerk in this fight. The fight still isn't free, the knights are fairly bulky, I am heavily relying on sleep magic to not immediately die, but I can actually see a way through this fight, whereas the execution site was pretty messy. This fight does take a few attempts to get the exact positioning I need to avoid most of the damage and get a little luckier with status accuracy, but that's okay. It could be way worse. And the fight gets to end with everyone ganging up on Gafgarian with Invigoration. See? We can drain HP too, jerk. Okay, I'll just bash your face in. That only took 3 tries. And next up is the first Lucavi fight, which sounds more dangerous, but is actually way easier. A Protect Ring on each character negates all of Kuhalin's status effects, and while it can deal a lot of damage, I have Invigoration to 4-shot the Lucavi with minimal effort. It only takes 1 attempt. That was a considerable improvement. Ooh, new poles in the shop? Love that. And now it's time for the first Act 2 battle in Goland. And this fight is great because sometimes it's super easy, and other times it's basically impossible. And it all depends on whether Orin decides to actually use his signature Galaxy Stop attack. And the good news is, this time, he does, meaning this only takes 1 attempt. Also, every enemy being incapacitated makes it really easy to finish them off with status effects, which is great. In Lunalia, we make excuses for war crimes and then get branded a heretic. Good news is this fight is not super difficult. The High Confessor prefers not to advance on the party, which is fair, I will murder him. But the starting position of my units in this fight is actually really good. Whoops. Good thing Alma doesn't have to survive this mission. Apparently. Oh hey! New headgear, new armor, new poles, just a straight equipment improvement across the board. Love that. That is always nice. I can also steal Alma's red shoes, which give +1 movement and +1 magic. Which is fine. It's good enough, I guess. And that means I need to storm Orban Monastery. I am slightly faster than the enemy units here, which is actually not the best. I guess it's fine though. The Lancers in this fight are also pretty durable, but they are very drainable, which is great. The Chemist is going to be a problem. Humorously, Invigoration isn't actually that much less accurate than basic attacks, because physical attacks have to deal with the target's physical evasion, which is continuing to improve, whereas Invigoration bypasses evasion. For some reason. This fight takes a few tries, mostly because if I move wrong, someone dies, but it's otherwise not that bad. It also helps when I hit stone twice in a row on round 1. How does that make you feel, jerk? And then it's just 2 time mages left who are annoying but unthreatening. Onwards to Isolde. And this fight can be pretty scary. I only have to take out Isolde in this fight, but he comes with 2 knights, 2 archers, and a summoner. And of course, Isolde has jump, which he isn't using, suggesting to me that he doesn't actually know any jump commands in this fight. So anyway, next fight against Wiegraf. My entire party has Chameleon Robe, so Wiegraf won't use his Holy Sword abilities. From there, I just need enough Invigorations to hit. It does take 2 turns to make all of them work, because I get a little unlucky, but good news is Invigoration has a CT speed of 50, because they really wanted Invigoration to be busted, apparently, and I appreciate that. It has made my life so much easier. Ooh, new poles. They can inflict Atheist, which would be bad, but it's probably fine. If I'm hitting something with a pole, it's because I'm going to kill it with said pole. So that's probably not going to make a huge difference. Ugh, not Grog Hill. This stupid fight is such a pain. 2 archers with the high ground, 2 chemists with guns, and infinite healing. At least I have Enduration. It's a one-shot, but generally can't be cured because chemists rarely have Gold Needle in this game. And unlike prior mage runs, I actually have pretty decent melee damage thanks to poles. Okay, you know what? I was expecting this fight to be a pain, but this should be okay. Oh, right. I don't have a very high jump stat, and I have turned a thief to stone in an unhelpful location. Okay, I think if I move to the far side of the map, I can lure the archer down to actually attack me? Hopefully. Okay, yes, I have lured out the archer and put him to sleep, now to just turn him to stone so he can't run back out of range. Okay, that was a little closer to a soft lock than I'd like. I will need to be mindful of that going forward. Oh god, it's Yardro. At least this isn't Tactician mode, so Rafa won't just die before the fight starts. But oof, ninjas and summoners across the board, what a nightmare. Ninjas are fast and deal big damage, summoners are equally bad because of my high faith, and the stupid wall in my way is unhelpful. I mean, given Rafa got out of the fort, maybe I should have lured them back? It's probably fine. I am getting a lot of mileage out of Confusion, though. It's unreliable, even as far as statuses go, but it does give me free damage. Did that ninja just move in range of sleep? that was unwise. That was actually a first attempt on Yardra. What is happening this run? Okay, I guess that's fine. I'll definitely take it. Okay, what's next? There are now golden hairpins in the shop. A bonus to speed is probably more useful than 50 MP and silence immunity, but we'll see. Okay, Yugwood. Everything here is undead, so I can't use invigoration, and the enemies may come back to life after they die. This is inconvenient, but I can solve for both problems by mostly leaning into Induration. Which one of them is immune to? Okay, this should still be fine. Honestly, Rafa has been soloing half the enemies here. I'm really surprised how long into this fight she has lasted and how much damage she's managed to deal. Well done, Rafa. You still ended the fight dead, but you more than carried your weight, which is unusual. Okay, Riovanes. All easy so far. Rafa and Marak will both bail on the fight once either gets to low HP, so they can both be safely disregarded to focus on everyone else. And my party can hide in the back corner and inflict status effects to take out the archers and knights. This ends up a bit close on a few characters, but that's more out of impatience than actual difficulty. Induration, it's so good. And that means it's time for everyone's favorite fight, which means I need speed. So, everyone gets a green beret and Hermes sandals, and Ramza gets the chameleon robe to absorb holy damage. This means Weegraf won't use his sword skills because he's stupid. He does still hit pretty hard, but considering my best damaging option also heals me, that's fine. I do need to be sure I don't miss twice in a row. Cough. Try that again. There we go, and Weegraf becomes the Esper Balias. I was not expecting him to run away from me. That's actually kind of a problem. And he has a high magic attack power. Okay, let's try that again. What do I do here to stop that from happening? Oh, I guess I can just run backwards with Ramza to bait him forward, and then miss a bunch, and there we go! Because as usual, Invigoration deals 25% of a target's max HP, so 4 hits will kill anything. Mostly. We will get to that later. Anyway, time to still buff up my speed and movement because it's time for a rooftop fight. And I just need to get one of these 3 idiots to critical health, which takes a few tries. At least each attempt is very short. And wow, that was Act 3, completed very quickly. Mystics seem to be coming online, which I appreciate. And that means only one act to go. And how hard could Act 4 really be? First up is the generic fight in Tagara Pass, which starts off the chapter fairly easy. There's a lot of generic units, they're vulnerable to sleep and stone, and silence actually, which is a status I have not used nearly as much as I probably should have. This fight still takes 2 attempts because I am pretty frail, but that's okay, most fights will. Alright, next up is Brevenia, and that means Meliadol. Good news is I only need to take out Meliadol, which is good because she has 2 summoners, 2 archers, and a ninja on her side. This takes a couple tries to get the accuracy to hit, but otherwise it's pretty easy. What's next? Oh right, Fanath Creek, the land of way too many chocobos. My first attempt has 4 red chocobos, which is a pretty tough combo to deal with even in a casual run, so how about we do a little quit to the world map and enter the area again. 2 reds and 3 yellows still isn't great, but it's way more manageable. Especially when Induration takes out the red chocobos turn 1, and pull damage is still pretty good. Just a shame that pulls are going to very quickly become completely worthless, for reasons we'll get into shortly. Anyway, time for Zeltenia, because it's time for a rematch against our old friend the Confessor. And this fight is very easy as ever, because while Zalmor does start the battle high up, I can switch into some speed boosting equipment to go before him, and magic has infinite height while targeting. Easy. Oh right, time for my old friend Barrick, who's pretty durable, he has a gun to shoot my party and run away, but joke's on him, because I know how to deal with him. Remove one character's equipment and start them as far back as possible so Barrick sees the kill and goes for it. I can then just target him with Invigoration and win the fight on round 1. So glad I figured that strategy out. Oh, I just love when a recording section is over an hour and I already know it only covers 2 fights. Because that's right, it's time for Bessalot. One of the harder fight sequences in the game, and while Mystics have managed a lot of maps quite well, I'm expecting this will not be one of them. And I think I'm gonna go for the south wall. Both sides of the wall are really bad for most classes, but I think the south wall is more dangerous. The 3 knights start out of melee range and will take a while to reach the party, and while there is a thief and a ninja, they can be focus fired right out the gate. The archers are less dangerous than they could be thanks to defense boost as well, The problem, though, is that even once the ninja is dead, I need to get moving to high ground quickly to stop the archers from just destroying my party from their high vantage points on either side. Also, while mystic spells have been fast enough to mostly work for a while, we are starting to reach the point where charge times are losing out to the enemy's improving speed stat. Charge time really should have scaled in some way in this game. Not a lot, but just a little improvement as you level would have been great. I'm not gonna lie, this fight took so many attempts. And maybe I should have switched back over to the north side to see if the summoner and monk would have been easier to deal with. I'm almost thinking they would have been. Summoners are frail and can be silenced, and the vertical terrain of that map is less of a hindrance. Oh well, too late now. I ultimately win the day by rushing everyone up onto one side of the wall. Between that and stone, I can stop the enemies from reaching my units while I slowly whittle them down. Honestly, watching this back, it didn't take as many attempts as I expected. It was mostly that every attempt was a slow slog. And now it's time for Bessalot proper, and that means switching back to better headgear for MP and giving everyone reflect rings. This will mostly negate the enemy black mages in this fight, assuming they don't have any tier 4 spells, or know how to bounce their spells effectively, which they do. The archers can also attack from their high vantage points, but the good news is they don't actually deal that much damage thanks to defense boost. It is still sometimes enough though. Okay, let's try Hesitation. Disable doesn't last very long in this game, but the early turns in this fight are actually the most dangerous. Once I can get some status momentum, I should actually be fine. In theory. It should also be noted that I don't actually have to kill all the enemies. Technically, I just need to access both halves of the sluice gate, though clearing the knights off of them would be tricky. Will chicken work for that? I really haven't used trepidation at all because it's just a slower version of sleep or hesitation. Okay, yes, chicken would work, but my positioning is not good enough and I will need to reset. One big change I appreciate about this remaster is the quick retry option. It's really nice. Okay, instead of what I was doing, I'm going to try and get all my mystics all together. The black mages should be mostly harmless, but by consolidating my units, I should be better able to focus down the enemy. Oh right, enemy black mages are really good at bouncing spells. Let's change my starting formation a bit. That should make it a little easier to get my mystics all in one place, and keep them in position where it will be difficult to bounce spells about. Though more difficult does not mean impossible. Obviously, try again. I'd really love to silence these black mages, but they have golden hairpins making them immune, which is great. I love that so much. Okay, this seems to be going better. It's slow, but my mystics are together, at decent HP totals, and no one's gotten hit by a bounce spell. Honestly, these knights having a lot of HP is kind of a pain, but it does mean I can drain a lot of health from them for healing purposes. Oh, I can also inflict Atheist with Disbelief. That can stop the enemy from using magic, and in a 1v1 without magic, Mystic definitely beats Black Mage. Okay, I'm really close here, I just need to not trip it up right at the end. The archer is dealing basically no damage, the black mage is out of MP, and the only knight can't move to attack me. I just need to not screw this up. Okay, there we go. Bessalot is finally done. These were two fights that I was really worried about going into this, so hopefully getting that out of the way means things will go more smoothly. Ooh, new poles. That's another melee damage increase. Though, again, pole damage is going to quickly become irrelevant. Onwards to Mount Germanus. This fight is often a pain because of the terrain and the archers and the ninja, so let's prioritize the ninja and incapacitating the other enemies. Good news, at least, is that defense boost is really good in this game. I feel like this is an ability I normally sleep on because I usually go damage focused, but here it's pretty good. Also, being able to drain health is incredible for keeping my party alive. Although I am also a bit low on money and I'm gonna need to repurchase like 6 stolen items. Assuming I can actually take out these archers before my last unit crystallizes. Okay, let's just try that. Again, my strategy is still the same because draining health and inflicting status effects is an evergreen strategy, but I just need to get a bit luckier with my status accuracy, which I mostly am, and that is Germanus completed. Good, that was a fight I was also a bit concerned about, and all it took was hitting 3 stones in a row. Ooh, Lambent hats, +1 magic attack and +1 speed. Fantastic. Oh, this fight. This is a fight that is normally a big nothing experience, but here, in this playthrough, it's actually a really big problem, and there are a lot of reasons why. First problem, everything is undead. And because everything is undead, I can't drain health from the enemy, meaning my best way to heal my party doesn't work, which is a real problem. Undead can also come back to life instead of disappearing when their counters reach 0. Induration makes that less of a problem, but it is still a problem. Next issue is the enemy spellcasters. Summoners can deal really big damage that is genuinely concerning, and the opposing Mystic has status effects that can cause big issues, as evidenced by every fight I've won up until this point. Now normally I would probably just be able to rely on pulls for decent enough damage to tip the scales, but it's time to get into the HP scaling problem that I've been hinting at for the entire video. For reasons unclear to me, the remaster really starts to balloon HP numbers in the final section of the game. Despite similar equipment and similar health growths, the enemy units in this fight have 100 to 200 more HP than my characters, meaning my pulls being able to deal about 100 damage are woefully inadequate here. That means I really need to rely on status effects, specifically in duration, to finish off the enemy units. Now normally Invigoration would be a suitable replacement, but again, undead. So yeah, this is a complete mess of a fight. This wasn't even on the list of potential problem fights, but this may actually be the hardest fight in the game. So let's do some off-screen grinding. Hopefully that will give me some stat improvements to turn this fight in my favor. And we're back, with 5-ish levels gained on each character. Not a huge amount, but hopefully it's enough. I also have the healing staff on one of my mystics. I'm hoping this will help cover for my otherwise lack of healing, despite how little healing it actually does. Trepidation does turn one of the enemy ghosts into a chicken, which is great. From there I can put most of the enemies to sleep, and then it's all about carefully moving forward and turning the enemy to stone before they wake up. Oh, also the enemy mystic in this fight has silence as a spell. And for some reason, silence is permanent in this game. Unlike every other status, in this game, silence lasts the entire battle. So, 2 of my 5 mystics have no spellcasting access for the rest of the fight. This is fine though, it's fine. Most of the enemy units are turned to stone, so they are dealt with, and the cloaks I have on my party are really doing a lot to block status magic. The Mystic is also immune to stone, so I will actually have to beat him to death. Let's go ahead and drop his bravery and silence him so I don't have to deal with his nonsense while I do that. There we go. That took way longer than I had expected, and I really had to bust out all the different status effects. Okay, let's hope the rest of this stupid act goes better, shall we? And that starts with Limberry Castle Gates, which is thankfully very easy. It's super easy to bait out Celia and Lede to cast Ultima, and because Invigoration is hilariously fast, I can easily cast it before the rest of the enemy units even move. It does take a few retries because accuracy, but it's a quick reset. Then it is time for the keep proper, which means I need to lure out Elmdor and then just cast Invigoration again. He may be buffed to have like 3 times as much HP as he should, but Mystics deal percentage damage, so that's not a problem. At least not for Mystics. And then it's time for another Lucavi fight, this time against Alera. Time to give the whole party Protect Rings to stop the negative status effects, which would otherwise be a big problem in this fight. And then, you guessed it, spam Invigoration. This boss has over 2,000 HP and dies in 1 turn. Ooh, yay, Thief Hats. Those are actually way more useful than Lambent Hats. We are well past the point where basic damage can even be usable, so it's either Stone or Drain. And while Magic Attack does technically boost accuracy of status spells, it's incredibly minor. Anyway, into Egros. Dice Star does also inflict silence, which is permanent, but I really just need to get some drains off and its phase shift to Adremelech. And because of the way the turn order worked out, Adremelech never even took a turn. Can't help but notice that those damage numbers are fast approaching the damage cap. No time to worry about that though, it's time to storm the gates of Muland. And while this map does look unfavorable with enemies starting in high places, they also start very close to me on the horizontal axis. That means I can immediately silence both spellcasters and put the orators to sleep. I could not have asked for that to go any better. The Geomancers can still contribute, but they are outnumbered and their doubled health pools just mean I heal more when I drain their HP. And because their damage hasn't been increased, it's totally fine. I also got pretty lucky with no status triggers from Geomancy. That fight ended up way too easy. Next up is a fight against these knights, and I only need to take out 1. And they all have high faith, so my accuracy is high. Oh, I'm so fast. I actually need to slow down my character so the enemy goes first and moves forward. Anyway, let's try that again with fewer speed boosting items. This does mean I have a bunch of stuff get broken, but I can always buy new armor. The fight is otherwise very easy thanks to Chain Invigoration, and that means I only have 1 more fight to get through before the final battles. And that is against not really a zombie Zalbog. The Ultima demons in this fight are no joke, and I would kill for some movement speed, but it still only takes 1 try to get enough hits to take out Zalbog. And that is actually it. I will need to buy some equipment from the shops to be fully prepared, but then it's time for the final sequence. And that starts in Orban Monastery, and the last fight in the game against generic units. And while this fight can be easy, it can also be a pain in the butt. There are a lot of enemies, none are guaranteed to have high faith, and every enemy here deals decent enough damage to be threatening. Other than the final boss, this is actually the last fight in the game I'm really worried about. And yeah, it's not great, and it ultimately comes down to a bit of luck. Repose isn't hugely accurate, but if you cast it enough times, it will hit. And because sleep lasts just so long, it's pretty easy to use that time to either drain a target to death or turn them to stone. And bluntly, often doing both is the most effective. While other mages might have worried about running out of MP, that's just not a concern here. Mana Font gives me MP regen when I move, and it's rarely relevant anyway, thanks to low MP costs. Okay, now it's endgame time. And next up is another solo enemy fight, and Invigoration, goodbye. Let's move on. Cletian can be pretty dangerous thanks to his cadre of ninjas and samurai, but he is very easy to bait forward and invigorate. So this fight is also very easy. Then it's into the Barrack fight. Now, like the previous fight against him, I will need to bait him out and then chain cast Invigorate. However, this fight takes a good number of attempts to get my positioning correct. Guns have a really long range, and my movement speed is not good. But after some dialing in on the specifics on where my units start the fight, what equipment they begin with, I can reliably get Barrack to move into a vulnerable position. It's then just a matter of a few more resets until the accuracy gods favor me, and that is Barrack down. And that means it's only 2 fights left. First up is Ashmal, penultimate boss in the game. He does love to inflict statuses, and yep, there we go. We have reached the damage cap in this game, because I can't deal more than 999 damage, and Ashmal has over 3,996 HP. This is actually fine for Ashmal because I just hit him 5 times on the first attempt and he dies. It is less fine in the final fight of the game against Ultima, because Ultima also has more than 4,000 HP, and unlike Ashmal, Ultima brought friends, aka very dangerous Ultima demons that will absolutely wreck my party if given a chance. And my normal strategy would be to focus fire down Ultima to get her into phase 2, but that doesn't work super well when she has a stupidly high amount of HP. I can bait her over to the party by leaving one character in one-shot range, aka the Barrack special, but that's not actually enough to take out Ultima. While I'm not sure how much HP Ultima has, it's definitely more than 4 Invigorations can deal. And while 5 might, in theory, and I stress theory, be enough to take her into phase 2, there is no combination of equipment that I have with me that will allow me to get off 5 Invigorations and bait Ultima over to try and kill one of my characters. The most I can get is 4, and that assumes they all hit, which is often not the case. And if I don't kill Ultima immediately, she will teleport out of range and leave the rest of the fight to her Ultima demons. And while the Ultima demons are not as durable as Ultima, they are actually considerably more dangerous because of the amount of damage they can deal. This is a tricky one. I was really hoping that Invigoration would just win the fight for me, but that is not the case. Okay, so focus firing Ultima is still not going to work. That means I need to deal with the Ultima demons. They are dangerous and can deal big damage, and are way more durable than they really should be, so I also need to switch up some accessories. 2 Mystics get Germanus boots for maneuverability, and the other 2 stick with Hermes shoes for speed. That means I can get off hesitation on all 4 demons in one turn. While my Mystics do take some damage, Invigoration on targets with this much HP means I can in fact fully heal. Okay, that hesitation break gets me into phase 2 because it turns out Ultima cannot in fact survive 5 Invigorations. Good to know. And now should be the easy part. Ultima transforms and gets rid of its helpers. Invigoration is still in play, but I do need to spread out my Mystics to not get absolutely bodied by Ultima's strong status magics. Grand Cross is definitely no joke, but I get pretty lucky with some fairly minor statuses on the first cast. And Ultima decides to waste its turn by attacking Alma with a melee attack. I'm not actually sure why Ultima loves using physical attacks in phase 2 when applying a bunch of statuses would probably take out my entire party before I could do enough damage, but given that it means I have enough time to drain health, I appreciate it. And with a final Invigoration, Ultima goes down. Well done, Mystics. And that was Final Fantasy Tactics, beaten with only Mystics, and that was pretty interesting. Mystics are a fun class with decent weapons and powerful status spells, and the remaster is really well done, for the most part. I am genuinely concerned about doing other challenges in this remaster. The health pools in the latter portion of the game are pretty concerning for any class that doesn't have status effects or percentage damage. and I'm not sure how I feel about that. But that is a later me consideration. I did want to shout out that I do have a Patreon, linked in the description. I spend a lot of time making these videos, so if you enjoyed the video, want to support the channel, and are financially stable enough to do so, that exists. No pressure though, this channel is free to enjoy for everyone, and will remain that way. For now, if you like this video, be sure to hit that like button. If you'd like to see more of this, feel free to subscribe. Hey, maybe leave a comment if you have something you'd like to say. But whatever you decide to do, have a safe trip home.